Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Muskegon Planning Commission. I'd like to welcome both the audience here at City Hall and those of you who are watching on TV. Um, and I want to tell you a little bit about our meetings. We do most of our business in the form of a public hearing, and that's different than a lot of the meetings that the city has. In a public hearing, I will announce the hearing. City staff will give an explanation of the hearing. Commissioners will then have a chance to ask staff questions. When they've completed the questions of staff, we'll ask the person making the request to come to the podium, give their name and address, and talk about why they're requesting this action. City commissioners will then have an opportunity to ask questions of the individual, and when those questions are done, we'll open it to the audience. And if anybody in the audience wishes to ask a question or make a comment regarding the issue, you may do so. And that's for the audience here. The audience at home, you have a phone number to call into, and we will take your call. And then we close the public hearing, and the city commission or the planning commission will take their action on the issue. So we will begin with roll call.
Mayor Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Hood,
Here.
Seifert, Keener, Doyle,
Here.
Mazade,
Here.
Montgomery Keast,
Here.
Spataro, Mahalski.
Yes. Next is approval of minutes of the regular meeting of April 13th.
I'll motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Support.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Minutes are approved. Old business. Do we have any old business? Seeing none, we go to public hearings. And the first public hearing is case 2023-10.
This is a request to rezone the property at 1043 Washington Ave from R2 to Form-Based Code Neighborhood Edge by FMA Rentals. The structure measures just under 5,000 square foot and sits on a 9,800 square foot lot. It is a 5-unit residential building with a commercial suite in it. The owner would like to convert that commercial suite into another residential suite to give it 6 units. This building is on the dangerous buildings list. The previous owner was not able to make the necessary upgrades, and the new owner was able to save the property by putting funds into escrow to place the building under superintendent control, and they are now in the process of making the necessary upgrades. They conferred with staff to see what the best zoning designation would be to allow this use. Staff came up with the Form-Based Code Neighborhood Edge designation. This designation would allow either a mixed-use type building or a flex type building like this, which could go from either residential strictly, or it could go back to having that commercial suite on there. So we figured having that prominent building with the historic commercial use on the corner there could serve as one of these community nodes that we talk a lot about in the master plan. So we wanted to keep that designation or give it that designation so we'd have some flexibility with the building in the future. We sent out notice to everybody within 300 feet, and we did not hear any comments from the public.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Yes.
I just wanted some clarification. It was listed as dangerous buildings, so what were the things that needed to be fixed?
There's a whole laundry list of them.
Like super huge, huh?
Yeah, they're pretty large tasks that need to be
Maybe I
underdone.
can ask the person about it later. Okay.
Yes, Commissioner Hunt.
So they've been working with you to well, they plan to work with you to get those problems fixed.
Yes, they're working with the building department now currently, and the applicant is here. We can asking for an update on the project.
Commissioner Mazade.
So I have a couple of questions, I think, Mike. I mean, this seems to make all kinds of sense to me, but when I look at the form-based code, what is allowed there, I get a little concerned. Maybe you can take care of those concerns. It talks about some things that would be permitted by right in terms of some commercial, a drive-through, those kinds of things would be permitted. Is that right?
Let me see with drive-through.
It looks like there could be some retail on that site under the new zoning, along with a drive-through. And I mean, I know that's not their intention with this proposal that we're hearing about, but I'm always concerned about what does the new zoning allow for?
Yeah, actually, in this zone context here, that is true. That would be allowed.
Okay. And can you tell us who FMA Rental is?
Yeah, it's Fred, who's the owner of actually the Deck restaurant.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Okay.
Fred Sharmer.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doyle,
Yeah, just, were there any issues with parking? If it gets to 6 units, you're talking 12 spaces, it's all street parking then, right?
They do have parking in the back. It's a double lot that's
Oh,
been
okay.
combined, so
Yeah.
they do have the ability
See that?
to add parking.
Or not?
On site.
Okay. All right, thank you.
the other questions? Yes.
Just, I mean, having reviewed the material, I do think this is an appropriate use for this building. I don't really see future retail there. It's fairly isolated within the neighborhood. There is space for parking for residents. And there are a number of examples, just a block for me, on the intersection of Sixth and Dale, where a number of previously commercial buildings had converted to residential, so that instead of sitting empty, they're in productive use. And I certainly think this merits. I mean, we used to be able to do this by a special use permit if it was a legacy commercial building. So I have no problems with this. They're an asset to the neighborhood. And it's a very attractive building. Nobody wants to lose it. Or could be again. It was pretty nice up until a few years ago.
I have a question regarding the parking. Looking at the picture of the parking area behind, it doesn't look like it's paved. Don't we require paved parking lots?
This is most likely had been a grandfathered use with the parking. I can't exactly speak to that. I do believe that the owner has intentions of bringing that up to code. Any parking on site would be an addition, but being it's his form-based code, we don't actually require them to have off-street parking.
Okay. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, would the person making the request please come to the podium, give your name and address, and tell us about it.
Fred Sharmer, 1058 Fordham Court. Do you have questions, or do you want me to just give you a little?
But you don't. If you don't have anything to say, that's fine. Any questions, commissioners?
So your plans for this property is fully residential at this time?
That's correct,
Correct.
yes. Yep, we're hoping to have about 6 units. They'll be all long-term rentals.
And then I wanted to get back to my original question that I asked staff.
Yeah.
What do you got on your hands?
I
there,
mean, it's a
guy?
massive project, so it's, my wife and I just really love old buildings. So we kind of, we got into it about a year and a half ago, just renovating them. And we've seen that building for years, so we kind of have just a place that we just thought it was great. And we noticed that it was going to get knocked down, so we wanted to save it, but the list is huge. A laundry list, I think, would be a small way to put it. What Mike said, it's got foundation issues, it's got roof issues, it's got anything you could think of. The previous owner opted to not fix those items, however, was trying to rent the property. So basically, the entire property was renovated without any type of permitting. So it'll be taken down to the studs, completely redone.
Okay. I guess so.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I think this is great. The city desperately needs residential units, and
Yeah.
this is adding residential units, so I'm pretty much in favor of it. Yes, Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question. Given that your intent is for it to be entirely residential, what concerns, if any, might you have if it you didn't retain the use for commercial purposes on that first floor, and it was only a small multiplex residential going forward?
So
Or not only,
You're saying
but-
what would the concerns be if we kept it retail?
No. What concerns, if any, would you have if the zoning were to change to accommodate your intended use? It's a small multiplex there, but you didn't retain the right to have commercial use of the, mixed use development.
We have no intention of ever doing commercial or retail, preferably. We think converting it is a huge expense into the long-term rentals. So we would be comfortable if it stayed residential. That would be fine.
Okay. Thank you.
And then a follow-up on the parking. Let's talk about parking.
We would prefer to have on-site parking. It's much more desirable for our tenants in the future. We do have an engineer firm contracted now and architects. The architects are working on the interior of the building. And the engineers they just finished a survey last week, and then they'll be working on some ideas for parking on premise.
It's 2 parking spaces per unit is what you're thinking?
I don't even know. I kind of left it up to them. The engineer firm will say what the minimum is.
Okay.
But we would like to make it great. I mean, it would be paved and preferably whatever fits within planning and zoning.
I think you get a pretty good rent there.
Any other questions? Commissioners? Thank you. Now we open it up to the audience, both here at City Hall and on watching at home on the TV. Is there anybody here in the audience that has any questions or comments they'd like to make? Seeing none, is there anybody on the phone line?
There's no one on the phone line.
Okay. Yes.
I would move that we close the public hearing.
Support?
It's been moved and supported, close public hearing. Yes, Commissioner?
Then I have a question for staff with regard to if we wanted to go with urban residential context area versus the neighborhood edge context area that's been proposed. Do we have that option at this time to do that? Or would it have to be renoticed that we're looking to do urban residential context area versus neighborhood edge?
It would have to start a whole new case.
Okay. So if the planning commission were to make a recommendation to the city commission to rezone this neighborhood edge, the city commission did not then have the discretion at that time to use urban residential context area versus neighborhood edge?
Correct. They would not.
Got to repost and start over.
Okay.
It's a totally different issue.
Another
So-
reason I would recommend this, I know we mentioned the small multiplex in the mixed use building, but I do see some issues with calling this a small multiplex because it doesn't meet the building design requirements of a small multiplex. So then we get into that quandary of, are we going to be allowing extra units to go into maybe a single family home from a duplex? I think this really solves the building type issue as well, having it in this context area.
Great recommendation.
So what are you using then? If you're not going to call it small multiplex, what is?
It could be a flex building. Which
There's going to be a flex building. So I just want to understand that then in terms of what the use by rights are there, because some of these use by rights that were permitted with mixed use is manufacturing, machine shop, like distillery, breweries, things that may not be suitable for that particular, that area, and people are not aware of. Now, I am a proponent of having neighborhood enterprise, so I appreciate, staff's desire to have that flexibility to have neighborhood enterprise. But as Commissioner Mazade was saying, concerned about the kind of the long-term implications of having this mixed use and having that possibility of uses that we are not contemplating today. So that's where I'm a little bit torn, given that we have urban residential context area right across the street and surrounding that area, and then R2. That seems like the urban residential context area that's already surrounding that area permits the developer to proceed with what they want to do with that property. So that's my thinking. But in terms of, let me look at the flex building type.
Can we close the public hearing first before we go into discussion?
We have a motion.
There is a motion on the floor.
Motion on the floor, so
Support?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Okay, public hearing is closed. Mayor, you may continue now.
Well, no, we need a motion.
Well, I'm still trying to discuss
Okay.
it.
But we have
I
to
wanna
have a
get-
motion in order
All-
to have discussion.
Well, no, that's the chair's prerogative.
No, that's Robert's
No,
rules.
that's chair's
which we're supposed to
prerogative.
I do,
follow.
I'll do the motion.
Okay,
I move that the request to rezone the property at 1043 Washington Avenue from R2 Single Family Medium Density Residential Form-Based Code Neighborhood Edge be recommended to the City Commission for approval.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded to approve the request. Is there any further discussion?
Yes. Well, I want to understand what these use by rights are permitted. So we're talking about through flex building, the use by rights, all accessory building uses, amusement, recreational facility, a bank, school, club, lodge hall, and we already have a lodge hall issue over in that neighborhood with another property in the past. A gallery, museum, indoor theater, live music, concert hall, light manufacturing, machine shop, microbrewery, distillery, under 2,500 barrels and over 2,500 barrels, multifamily, office, outdoor recreation, personal service, research and development, restaurant, cocktail, lounge and brew pub, retail, shipping and port related activity, taxi limo service, uses similar to those permitted uses, warehousing, wind turbine, and veterinarian and kennel. So there's a lot of activities that are permitted as a use by right with this neighborhood edge. Even though the applicant has no interest in pursuing any of those things, by adopting this, we're giving any future property owner that use by right. Automatically, they can just move forward and do that within the conditions of the zoning. And so that's why I'm just more inclined to go urban residential, with accommodates what the developer wants to do without potentially having a Pandora's box being opening, which I think is what was Commissioner Mazate's concerns earlier.
Commissioner Spataro.
Certainly. I certainly understand and respect those concerns. We've seen that in other sites where zoning was made for a particular project and then down the road, a different use that was much less amenable to the neighborhood in which the project was located happened. We can think of a lot of examples of that. I would point out in this particular site that the building size and the lot size precludes, just based on the footprint of the lot itself, most of those potential uses. So if somebody wanted to do a lot of those things, whether it's 25,000 barrels of beer a year or a concert hall or those kind of things, unless it was extremely small like the Masons over at Fifth and Mason, this building really wouldn't accommodate that, and this lot would really accommodate that. But I get where the planning department is coming from. Looking at the two potential uses in the packet, this actually requires fewer variances from the ordinance for them to do what they want to do than the alternative. So while that may preclude some possibilities, most of those possibilities wouldn't really work on this site because of its size. Whereas to accommodate the person who wants to save this building, this is a much more straightforward zoning change. So that's why I'm in support of the motion.
Commissioner Mazate.
I think I'm kind of sorry I brought up this subject, but
Troublemaker.
but Mike explained what I was concerned about, and I think I'm fine. Especially now we're talking about a flex building, which doesn't allow, as I understand it, doesn't allow the drive-through. And this building's really not set up for some of those issues that I think I was concerned about. And now hearing from the applicant and understanding where they're going with this project, I'm comfortable with it.
Any further discussion? Yes, Mayor.
Yeah. No, I'll just say that, and I fully support the applicant's intended redevelopment of this property. And we desperately need more residential. And so I'm grateful for you taking on this project. When it came before us from the Housing Board of Appeals with a recommendation for demolition, I did support that, but that was with the hope that someone would come along, whether the previous property owner or someone else comes along and took the time and effort and put in the resources to save that building and get into productive use again. So I just wanted to extend my appreciation for your efforts in that regard.
Is there any further discussion on this matter? Roll call, please.
Spataro,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes. Not my preference, but I'll support it.
Commissioner Hud,
Yes.
Seifert,
Yes.
Doyle,
Yes.
Mazade,
Yes.
Montgomery Keast,
Yes.
motion passes. I'm sorry, Mahowski.
Yes.
Thank you.
Don't make me off yet. Okay. Motion passes. You're all set.
So go to the city commission meeting on June 27th.
Next, hearing case 2023-11.
This is a request for a special use permit for a drive-through window at 825 East Laketon Avenue by Little Caesars. The property is zone B2, convenience and comparison business. Drive-throughs are allowed under two conditions. The setback of the building must be at least 60 feet from the street right-of-way. Of any existing or proposed major thoroughfare. That does not pertain to this because it's not a major thoroughfare. The other condition is that ingress and egress point shall be located at least 60 feet from the intersection of any two streets. They do have 3 curb cuts. One of them is within that distance at the corner of Laketon and Continental. I believe,
Yes.
yes, the one on Continental. That one, staff has recommended to be closed for the drive-through. They do have adequate parking on site, and we think even less would be used with the addition of a drive-through. And notice was sent to everybody within 300 feet, and we did not receive any comments from the public.
Any questions? Staff?
You said another drive-through nearby. I'm sorry. You said another drive-through nearby is being staff's moving and removing. Did I hear that correctly, or what?
We're asking to remove one of the curb cuts.
Oh, one of the curb cuts.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the curb cut that's closest to the intersection of Laketon and Continental.
Yeah, that's kind of a bad spot anyway as it is, so I'm glad that's getting closed. I've had more than one person whip out of there and nearly cause an accident.
Yeah, it would be
Going by.
even more dangerous, I believe, with a drive-through there.
Any other questions for staff? Is there a representative from Little Caesars here? Please come to the podium, give us your name and address.
Ashley Dude, 825 East Laketon.
Okay, do you have any comments to make?
Sorry, I'm speaking on behalf of my owner. So he did say that he gets oh my goodness. He gets everything tomorrow in the morning from the person, and that it should be taken care of. So all the plans and everything like that should be brought to his attention tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Questions for her? Yeah.
Does the
Mayor?
owner own the whole building?
He does.
Just-
He does own
okay.
the whole building.
So has he or you or anyone else spoken with the other tenant, the adjoining tenant next door, and
Yep.
just mitigated any concerns they might have?
Nope.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant?
How about the curb cut? You understand what we're requesting in terms of closing the curb cut?
Yes, he
and you're
does.
okay with that?
He does understand, and he asked for the plans to be updated and everything like that. But he
Thank
just
you.
doesn't get them till tomorrow morning.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Somehow I don't
Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to comment on this subject? Nobody here at City Hall? Anybody in our listening audience on
I have
TV?
no one on the phone.
No one on the phone.
Move to close the public hearing?
Second?
Been moved and seconded, close the public hearing. What's your pleasure, commissioners?
We gotta vote.
Got to vote.
All in favor, aye.
Oh, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, it passes. Okay, now,
So we need a motion.
yes, Mayor?
I move that the request for a special use permit for a drive-through window at 825 East Laketon Avenue be approved with the following conditions based on the above statement of conclusions. 1, the curb cut near the intersection of Continental and Laketon is removed and replaced with new curb, and an updated site plan is approved by staff.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Is there any discussion?
That's the next one. I ended that picture.
I just want to say I'm in favor of the project. As you let people drive up to get their pot, they should be able to drive up and get their meat. Okay,
Amen.
roll call.
Doyle,
Yes.
Mazay,
Yes.
Montgomery Keith,
Yes.
Spataro,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hud,
Yes.
Seifert,
Yes.
Mahalski.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Now we go on to hearing. You go tell your boss you did a good job. Hearing case 2023-12.
This is a request for a special use permit for a gas station at 860 West Sherman. The property is zone B2, convenience and comparison business. Gas stations are allowed with the issuance of a special use permit under the following conditions. Entrances shall be no less than 25 feet from a street intersection, which they meet. The minimum lot area is at least 10,000 square feet, which they meet. They are not abutting a residential district, so they do not require any screening. All of the lighting will be down-facing and shielding, and they do not have an outdoor restroom that needs to be screened
Here,
either.
chatting. What's going
There's an existing 9,300 square foot building that hosts the Lighthouse Liquors building. The building would be modified to create another suite for the gas station. There's also planned a 5,445 square foot retail building that you can see in the outline. This does not grant them any approvals, but is simply intended to show how the lot will function in the future. So they will need to come back to get their site plan approved when that development occurs. The three landscaping islands to the north of property will be removed, and one larger landscaping island will be put in its place. This will separate them from the car sales lot to the north. Driveway approach on Henry Street was proposed to be widened from 20 feet to 30 feet. We asked for a little bit more clarification on that. They gave us some more information about the truck turning radiuses, and our engineering department feels comfortable with it. We also don't really have strong enough language in our street ordinance to require that, but that's something that we're proposing in the master plan, and hopefully we're going to be taking care of in the coming years, so we can kind of get a control on excessively wide curb cuts. But this one probably shouldn't be too big of a deal. There's already ones these size in this area. The fire marshal has stated that the gas meter needs protection to meet the International Fire Code, section 603.9 and section 312. I've just placed that as a condition of approval on the proposed motion to be made. And notice was sent to everybody within 300 feet, and we did not receive any comments from the public.
Any questions of staff? Commissioners? I have one question. Does this include the current Lighthouse Liquor building?
Yes, so
Okay.
for my understanding, the Lighthouse Liquors entrance will remain to the south, and the new entrance for the gas station will be to the east.
Okay, so it basically it's that old Radio Shack building. Right
Yes.
there. Okay.
Still has the sign up.
Yes, it does.
As a matter of fact, it does.
Okay.
I can understand that, and maybe I didn't hear that. You said the Lighthouse Liquor's gonna stay the way it is, and it's just the Radio Shack portion of it.
That's what staff said.
Okay.
I didn't say that.
Okay, all right. I couldn't quite hear that. That's what I understood.
Okay. Any other questions? Is there a representative or of the person making the requests? Give us your name and address and tell us about your project.
Sure. So my name is Chuck Hoyt. I'm here from Naderveld. We are land planners and civil engineers and surveyors. And I'm here on behalf of the client, Mr. Multani. Pretty straightforward. Mr. Franzek did a good job of explaining what the project is all about. A couple things of clarification. The Lighthouse Liquors is going to remain. However, the entrances are going to be sort of reoriented a little bit. There still will be one on the south side, but really the main entrance is going to be on that east side of the property, so near the gas pump area, and sort of the frontage being along the eastern road there. So I'm here to answer any other questions. Like Mr. Frenzak said, we seem to meet all of the requirements of the ordinance, and we think it's a great project. So here to answer any questions for you.
Any questions for the applicant? Yes.
I just have a general question because I don't know a lot about tank installation and those kinds of things now. Can you tell me a little bit about that and the environmental contamination issues that often arise from gas stations? How is there protection from the groundwater?
Well, that's not necessarily our forte. There is another agency that the client uses for the tank installation, so I'd be a little bit out over my skis if I started talking too much about that.
Okay.
But I do know that there are state regulations that monitor tanks for when they get installed, and the protections and separations that they have if there's like a well on site or that sort of thing. That's probably a better question to be answered by their contractor who does that installation, because that's completely their baby. But by all means, they'll be in compliance with any state regulations.
Okay, and then I have a follow-up to that. If you can talk a little bit about electric cars. So you're putting in gas tanks. Is there going to be any accommodation for electric vehicles in the future?
That's really not something that we talked about a whole lot. Mr. Multani, have you thought about that at all? Have you? Okay, so right, they have a deal worked out with Shell, who's going to be providing the gasoline, and it sounds like they instructed them to just hold tight on that for now, but certainly that could be an accommodation in the future.
It's coming down the pike. Thank you.
Any other questions for the presenter? Yes, Mayor?
Can you speak to just the timeline of, if this gets approved, what the timeline is for this construction activity? And just out of curiosity, that's not germane to how we vote, but just out of curiosity, what the anticipated investment will be in this project?
Well, if they're like most of our clients, they're going to want it engineered in about a week. So we need to take some time, right? So upon approval from this body, we of course need to go into actual construction drawings, and that's obviously a several-month process, and then including all permits and things like that. And then their actual construction process of bidding and that sort of thing. Is there anything, guys, that would delay you other than just the sort of normal process of construction drawings, permits, pricing, that sort of thing? So I guess I would say just a normal construction process. So, is it a winter or spring of next year project? I would anticipate that just with the normal course of things. I would say spring of '24 is probably when they would break ground.
Okay. Any further questions for the presenter?
This is right on the edge, so I don't know if this is your property or if this is Walgreens property, but it's going in the driveway. According to this map, it looks like it might be in the Walgreens property. But as you take that driveway into it, there's this, it's been there for a long time, this essentially a pothole. Like there's a big gap in the concrete right there, so you're taking the driveway. So I don't know if that's Walgreens or if it's yours, but I imagine even if it's Walgreens, you're going to want to talk to them because it's going to be accessing...
That's theirs.
Yeah, so it's right there. Looks like it's Walgreens, but
Right at that southern entrance?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely Walgreens property. They would need to get permission, but when they're doing all the improvements on their site, it probably would be something that they could ask for forgiveness. They could ask for permission. But yeah, by all means, it's something that they can try to address.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent.
I just have one question. Did you do any type of analysis on the traffic flow? Technically, it looks like there would be one egress and access point, and then public could use the Walgreens access, and also coming from the west. So, did you do any type of study on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's no actual like traffic study. We just wanted to make sure to be in compliance with the special use standard for a gas station, which is the distance away from the intersection. And with the widening out of our entrance onto our site, we felt like we accommodated it. The entrance to the south is a bonus. It's nice to have. But we just wanted to make sure to accommodate it at that north entrance to the site, and we think we've done so with our design.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for the presenter? Seeing none, okay, I'd open this public hearing. Anyone in the audience wish to speak to the subject? Anybody here at City Hall? Seeing none, is there anybody on the call line?
There's no one on the phone.
God, we're not popular.
Move to close the public hearing.
This would have generated some
Moved and
comment from
supported
the
to close the
neighborhood.
public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Okay, commissioners, what's your pleasure?
I'll take it.
Commissioner Montgomery?
Let's see. Here it is. I move that the request for a special use permit for a gas station at 860 West Sherman Boulevard be approved with the following conditions based upon on the above statement of conclusions. The gas meter meets the requirement of the International Fire Code, Section 603.9 and Section 312. The width of the driveway approach to Henry Street remains the same unless proven otherwise by truck turning template. And number 3, staff approves an improved landscaping plan.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none? Roll call.
Massey,
Yes.
Montgomery Keys,
Yes.
Spataro,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Cipher,
Yes.
Doyle,
Yes.
Mahalski,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, that's the end of our public hearings. We go to new business. First is case 2023-13.
This is a request to amend the plan unit development at Hartshorn Village to relocate the proposed boat storage building. The plan unit development was amended for the second time this February to replace the condo building with the boat storage building, amongst other minor changes. This new PUD amendment would include moving the boat storage building from a 5-foot setback from the bike path to a 100-foot setback. A pool for the boat storage tenants will be placed in front of that in the front setback, and the alternate bike path around the boat storage building will be extended just a little bit to the south and will link up with the former railroad, where it will then again link back around north past the boat storage building.
So that'll be the bypass.
The Planning Commission has the ability to approve minor changes if the proposed modifications do not alter the basic design or land use of the plan.
Any questions for staff? Okay, no questions
How-
for staff.
How far was the setback for the pool, the new proposed pool, from the bike trail?
It appears to be about 5 feet-ish, from what I can tell, right?
Yeah, so it's 5 feet. If it was any further back, the sun would be blocked by the building.
Oh, that's why the big gap between the building and
Yes,
the pool.
I did the trigonometry, yes.
Okay. I guess I'll
Any further questions?
refrain further questions until the developer.
I do for Ryan.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask why the change. Why the
Because
change in
why was it moved back?
the, yeah.
Because originally it was a bit of a concern that it was too close. And so I just bought some more dirt from Ted so that I could move it back.
The whole building?
The whole building, yeah.
Wow.
So I just bought some more dirt and moved it back 100 feet.
Okay. All right.
There'll be plenty of clearance on both sides of the building relative to the existing bike path as well as the new
Yeah.
bike path. There'll be plenty of clearance.
Yeah.
So I don't think it will be as domineering or
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
imposing
Well, and
on our users of the
Yeah,
bike path.
and Ted wanted it, he was concerned about how far forward it was, so that was the other consideration. You know, we try to be a good neighbor. So it's a little bit further away from the bike path, so it's not like so up there, and it's a little bit further back so that, and actually in this new location, Ted still has more of a view of the lake than what was there before
Okay.
we ended up clearing the trees. So like, all in all, it's a big aesthetic improvement. Another thing that I really liked is that instead of having, you know, like a bike path bypass or reroute, or Jill's suggestion was maybe we can put a little, you know, some park amenities and like, you know, some benches and, you know, whatever. Instead of it just going around the building and stopping, we can tie it into the
Intersection.
railroad, which will end up being a bike path that as AP continues to develop, we will pave that entire pathway. So we're kind of already leveraging something that in the future is going to be there for everybody. So it's a little bit more eloquent plan in general.
All right. Thank you.
How will you be handling access to the pool in terms of like, because it's right there at our bike path, like in order to, you know, help protect people that aren't supposed to be there and
Yes.
potentially endangering themselves or others, being able to jump into that pool.
Yes, 100%. There will be some sort of fencing that gets put in there, but it'll be very much identical to what Hartshorn uses for aesthetic reasons. It'll be black, it'll be flat black, it'll be nice. You know, we'll have key fob access. I've contemplated allowing other AP customers to be able to use it. People that live in Hartshorn Village, Hartshorn Municipal Marina customers. I don't think I would put that into like a deed restriction or, you know, zoning or anything like that. But as long as I'm the owner, then I, you know, hopefully other people can use it as well. So.
And I
Any
meant
other questions?
you're gonna have you're still planning having a staff member or two at that crossing, which they could help keep an eye on the pool
Yeah.
as well. Then,
Yes.
because that's right nearby.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? I'm disappointed that we're gonna lose the residential units that were in the original proposal for Hackley Village. Because we desperately need residential units, and now it's being replaced by a big boat storage facility. But that's the way it goes. Okay. Need a motion.
No, we public. Oh, this isn't. Is
This
this
is
a public
a
hearing?
public hearing.
Okay.
I do no. Oh, I guess it's a question for staff, and it's just a little bit of like housekeeping or cleaning, and I don't know if it's necessarily something to address right now or if it really even matters. But I have heard some concerns about it being reflected in here, even though the city doesn't have any plans to move forward with that. And that's basically the other pool on the far east end and in the clubhouse, and it says future clubhouse and amenities by the city of Muskegon. But we have no expectation or anticipation of constructing that or providing that there. It's just a holdover from the very original Hartshorn PUD, the one that did show the housing that Chair Mahalski was speaking to. So that's still reflected in the plan, but there's no expectations for it. So I'm just wondering, like,
That was supposed to have been removed. I think you could make a motion to have that
it's fine to remove it right
stricken
now.
from the plan,
Okay.
and they can submit a revised one without showing that.
Okay.
I'm fine with that because I would probably end up putting more housing units in there anyway.
Okay.
You know, so.
That will solve some of the community's concerns because they see that in there and still think it's happening.
Yeah.
So.
Okay,
All right then.
I can't find the actual motion, but I'll make one up.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, sorry, that might have gotten.
It's okay. Let's see.
I
Go
Move.
for it.
to amend the planning and development at Hartshorn Village, 1000 West Western Avenue, to relocate the proposed boat storage building. I don't have any more detail back. 100 feet, and to accommodate a pool in its place with a 5-foot setback, at a minimum of 5-foot setback, and then remove the references to the clubhouse and pool at the far eastern edge of the PUD. Does that suffice? All right.
I think we
Second.
got it all.
is there a second? to the
Support.
I did.
Yeah.
Take your.
Any discussion on the motion?
Just, if I may,
Yes.
You know, there were a lot of concerns expressed at the public hearing on this PUD change to add this building, as opposed to the original PUD under the Hartshorn Village. I think this addresses a lot of those concerns, not all of them clearly, but a lot of them, and so I think this will make a better project.
The plan's getting better.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Seifert,
Yes.
Doyle,
Yes.
Hazade,
Yes.
Montgomery Keys,
Yes.
Spataro,
Yes.
Mahowski,
Yes.
motion passes.
Yeah.
Okay, next is case 2023-14.
This is the request to submit the draft master plan to the city commission to approve for distribution and review. The draft master plan is available on the website, and the planning commission must recommend that the city commission distributes the draft plan for review. The plan must be reviewed by the regional planning commission, the county board of commissioners, public utility companies, railroads, and all municipalities contiguous to Muskegon. And as well, we are still taking comments from the public during the 63-day review. We have comment section on the website, and we also have our contact information where we will be scheduling one-on-one discussions with anybody that would like to talk about the plan or has any concerns about it or recommended changes. And I also have a short presentation here to help you all walk through how to view the plan. Let's put this over just a bit. So this is a list of the public participation events that we had for the master plan. We had over 27 public participation events dating back to 2019. COVID really slowed us down, but you can see in 2019 we started with these neighborhood association workshops where we went to every single neighborhood association and really started showing them some of the demographics and the stats that we had and wanted to get some ideas for what they would like to see in the plan. 2021 we picked back up with some meetings after COVID died down a little bit. And this is where we had our neighborhood plan workshops where we scheduled 3 to 4 neighborhoods per workshop and got a better understanding of what people were wanting to see and started tweaking the plan a little bit to accommodate some of those ideas and concerns. And then in 2022, we had our economic development and business corridor workshop. We held that over at the hotel downtown. And 2023, we just wrapped up with our master plan presentations, where we had several of those. The plan includes 4 major topics and sections, which is housing and neighborhoods, transportation, economic development, and natural features and climate resiliency. And I just want to kind of give you a brief look at the goals and recommendations and how you'd be able to view them within these sections. This is just kind of a quick snapshot of what we come up with. I don't want to go through all of these, but if you have any questions on any of the goals you may have seen on here or have already read, feel free to bring them up. But we have the goals, and then we have the recommendations under them, and followed by a series of different action steps. And we'll also be having a chart in the back of the plan that shows which boards and committees and departments will be responsible for carrying out these action steps. So here's kind of a look at the natural features and climate resiliency. We have 5 separate goals with a number of recommendations to go along with that. Here's a look at the 6 economic development goals that we were able to create. And just stop me if anybody wants to talk about any of these, or feel free to schedule a meeting with us. We'd love to discuss these with you in more depth if you have any questions on them. And here's the 10 transportation goals. I didn't really have enough space to pull all the action steps. We have quite a few on there, but this is a section that we're really excited about. We work closely with the engineering department, and hopefully we can have this new streets policy developed pretty soon. The housing neighborhood sections is broken down into two parts. We have 6 different goals that we would like to see as goals that you would see in any neighborhood, depending on the location. So there's 6 of these with a series of action steps that'll help us create the housing policies that we want to see for the neighborhoods throughout the city. And then we took it a little bit farther and we actually developed plans for all 15 neighborhoods. A lot of that information for the overall neighborhood plans came through studying each of these individual neighborhoods, and we kind of broke it down to which specific neighborhoods need their own policies and projects, and which policies and projects would be beneficial for all neighborhoods to shoot for. So each neighborhood plan includes an assessment and recommendations for every neighborhood, including topics such as zone land use percentage, housing choice, commercial inventory and industrial inventory, parks and rec opportunities, which we don't want to get too in depth with because we have our own separate parks and recs plan, but some of the more smaller things that we could probably tackle outside of that plan we would like to list in here as well. There's also a big discussion over community nodes, which were areas that people gather within neighborhoods and kind of be used as an area where we could start maybe having some higher intense uses or more density to kind of attract people to those areas. We also have recommendations on transportation, blatant beautification, historic preservation. We have a list of significant redevelopment properties in these neighborhoods, and little snippets of the future land use map will be included as well.
Mike?
Yes.
Do any of these categories speak to short-term rentals?
We did not talk much about short-term rentals. I think if there is anything, it's in the overall housing section, not in each individual neighborhood.
Not in the individual,
Yes.
okay.
But each neighborhood, you know, it may not specifically speak to it, but there's information you can gather. There's percentages on what is the renter versus owner occupied houses in the neighborhood, how many housing units there are. So you kind of probably get a good idea just from looking at that, where those would be popular. Here's a look at the zone land use that you'll see in each neighborhood section. So here's a look at the Nims, Nelson, and Marquette neighborhoods. You can see how the land use differs. I'm sorry about the color of the charts. I don't know why they came out that way. They don't look like that in the plan, but when I copy and pasted them, they're a little hard to look. They all kind of look pink or beige, but you can see residential is the highest use in most neighborhoods. Nelson has the higher use of form-based code, and they also have a lot of different business and industrial and a lot of different uses in their neighborhood, whereas Marquette is mostly just a residential neighborhood. Each section is going to have a listing of the commercial and industrial inventory. Here's a look at Marquette's commercial inventory. We talk about the Getty Street and Marquette Avenue intersections, where there's kind of a hodgepodge of some buildings that may be open, some that may have been torn down. We have a church and some active businesses. So there's the building blocks there for a community node, but it's had a lot of disinvestment over the years. So this plan goes into some ideas, and we have some renderings for how we could activate that corner. The McLaughlin, we have an example here about the industrial inventory in McLaughlin. This is where the printing business is in Irwin. Their name escapes me right now. But just Graphics House, yes. But just west of Graphics House, there's a small section of the neighborhood that's zoned for residential, but it consists of vacant buildings and residential homes. So by looking at that, we know that that's probably not going to continue to be industrial in the future, so we recommend for some future land use changes. So that's kind of some of the information that we're getting from the plan and how we make recommendations for it. Community nodes, like I said, that's something big that a lot of commissioners talked about and wanted to see active uses within neighborhoods, whether that's, you know, a faith-based institution or neighborhood serving commercial options, or maybe it's just a park, or maybe it's all three in an area that we might want to concentrate some more density and make some zoning changes. So here we talk about the Madison Street and Forest Avenue intersection. There is a former mixed-use building at the southwest corner of that intersection. There is a church with a very large parking lot, which could see some out development or maybe food trucks, stuff like that. And there's some multifamily housing around that area. So again, that really has the building blocks for a community node, and it's already an area that we see a lot of things going on. So when we look, this is a snippet of our future land use map. And you can see these little circles is where we're identifying these community nodes. And there's two different types. There's a regional node where it's more regional serving commercial, and you can see those with the double circles. And there's more of community nodes where you're probably only going to be visited mostly by residents of the neighborhood. Parks and rec opportunities. Again, we have our Parks and Recs plan, which is going to be underway here for an update. But we did want to call out some other opportunities, more passive types of recreation opportunities. This is a map here where we show in steel, the green outline is a path along the creek, 4 Mile Creek, which pretty much can be accessed all the way publicly until you get to that red outline, which is that former greenhouse, actually extends to the other side of the creek. So there's an opportunity there where possibly the city could take ownership or even purchase an easement so we can start getting people access down there, and you could walk all the way from Marquette basically to downtown along the riverbed.
That'd be cool.
Transportation. Here's a little snippet from the Jackson Hill transportation section. It talks about what our major streets are in that area and what possible road diets could occur. That's kind of a big theme in the plan. Some of our streets are severely overbuilt. We see probably we did some project right here on Terrace Street. We think we could replicate that in different streets throughout all of the neighborhoods. And it also goes into active transportation options, whether there's any bike paths or what the sidewalk characteristics are in the neighborhood. So it really gives you a breakdown of all of that and what type of public transportation options are in the neighborhood as well.
I have a short question on the
Yes.
transportation piece. The mats, the service changes like all the time.
Yeah.
Their routes and all that noise. Have you guys done any forward thinking about what that might look like or how to deal with those changes? Because you've got plans written in here, and if they go this way, from what they're doing, and you're going that way, we could end up with some trouble.
Yeah, it's kind of an assessment of what's here now, and I think we want to work closer with them in the future,
Yeah,
which hasn't always been the case.
Yeah.
So,
that would be a good thing.
yeah.
Because there really isn't a lot. I think the service has even gotten even more limited at this point, even though they have that go-to bus. But it'd be really great if we could start thinking about what that might look like to get people around in the
Yeah.
city without having to rely on the county so much.
Well, I believe
Just
there's
a
a
thought.
push to get it to a regional transit authority, and we talk about that a little bit in the plan as well.
Ew. Okay, missed that. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
A section on blight and beautification in every neighborhood. I try to use some examples of things that may not stand out everywhere. Beechwood Bluffland doesn't always stick out as a blighted area, but we do get a lot of complaints about the Marina District with blank walls, faded painting, boat storage, things like that. So we made some recommendations on how we can improve that. We even had a rendering done, so we can see here with a new mural on some of the buildings, with improved sidewalk access on the north side of the street, and screening with trees and some fencing for the boats.
Very nice.
Historic preservation, we don't have a historic district in every neighborhood, but every neighborhood probably has something historic, so we'd like to at least note that and see if the Historic District Commission would like to pursue any additions to what the boundaries would be. So the Angel neighborhood doesn't presently contain any designated historic districts. but it is one of the older neighborhoods in the city and does have some significant architecture features. So that's something that we're going to want to bring in front of the historic board at some point and have them do a study on not only the addition of historically significant properties, but removing some as well. That's been on our minds for probably the past couple of decades. Is there's the historic districts serve the city well, but there's probably a couple of blocks that are in there that really don't hold as many historic worthy buildings. So we would like to study that a little bit further. Each neighborhood has a list of significant redevelopment properties, and at the end of the plan you'll see a map that shows where all of them are located with the bus routes by as well, so we can start thinking about transportation options and how we want to develop these properties. Here we have the one on the top here is the former Brunswick site, and it's currently zoned industrial, but we didn't really want to call out what the specific use would be, but we want to show kind of how the street grid could work. You know, there could be connections from Temple Street from the south or east to west with Larch, Dale, and Forest. And, you know, this could either be mixed use development, it could be housing, or it could stay industrial. And the property on the bottom is the former County South Campus. So this shows what some redevelopment options could look like with reconnecting the street grid. That's a major theme in this plan, is to reconnect the street grid where possible when we're doing redevelopments. I think the cool one here shows Hartford Street, which would be a little bit too close to Apple to probably put in another street, but they proposed a pedestrian walkway there, which I think would be a pretty neat addition. And all of this information we take and we look and we study, and we came up with different projects to propose for each neighborhood. So just going through a few of these, we can see here, this one would be in the Lakeside neighborhood. A lot of things we focus on in Lakeside are along the business district and Lakeshore Drive. This is actually to the south of the neighborhood off of Sherman. There's the gas station to the west. Then there's that big slanted rectangular property, and then there's some office buildings on the right. There's actually a pedestrian access point there already, so we envision this new mixed-use building to the right here with that pedestrian access, which leads to the crosswalk along Sherman.
Great.
And this would kind of help connect these two neighborhoods, which would be Lakeside and Glenside. Here's a look at one of the projects in Campbell Field. This is project proposed number 3, which is to provide non-motorized transportation options for neighborhood residents to safely access the Sherman Boulevard and Henry Street business corridors. You can see where that red line is. That would be a proposed non-motorized path behind where that new gas station will be that we just approved, and Walgreens. We thought a lot about, in this plan, pedestrian access along major corridors like Henry, but there's really only so much you can do on Henry Street. So we wanted to propose some alternate routes in the back there where you're really off of the street and don't have to worry about curb cuts and things like that. And that would really connect with the neighborhood to the north. Hudson Street is actually gravel right now, so if we could pave that street, we'd also be able to infill development. I think there's about 10 or 11 parcels there, which houses could be built. And then there's that 15 acres that's behind all of this, which has some development concerns because it's foundry fill, but we do propose some studies on that to see if it's developable, and if it is, there's certainly a lot of infill development that could take place back there as well. This is the project proposed in Angel. This is at the former farmers market site. Over the past few years, staff really tried to redevelop this site. It's just not possible with the contamination, and the soil structures will not support most building types. And there's been a major effort and a lot of requests from the Jackson Hill residents and Angel residents to reestablish Green Acres Park. It's really just overgrown right now, but it would not take that many improvements to create simple walking paths along the creek. And if we can get that easement that we talked about in the other neighborhood, you could have a walking path all the way down to the Marquette neighborhood. Then we propose, we already have probably too many parks to take care of, so turning this basically back into nature where we wouldn't really have to do much maintenance on it. And then obviously once we have people walking all the way down the lakeshore, we'd like to find a connection to the waterfront. So we're not sure if it would exactly be right there, but somewhere up and down the Moses Jones Parkway, we'd like to be able to lead people. There's already a former street easement you can see that leads right up to it, so there's some possibilities for that as well.
I have a question on Moses Jones, since you're talking about it. That road's way too wide. Are there any plans for doing anything with that puppy?
I believe, and the city manager can correct me if I'm wrong, is after we study the current section, is we may possibly be looking at Moses Jones in the future.
Yeah, so the state has told us that they won't consider any reductions to Moses Jones until we look at Shoreline Drive.
Oh.
So
okay.
the road diet that the commission discussed on Monday, feels like a long time ago, on Monday, once we get through that and get the data from that, then we can start talking to the
Gotcha.
state. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, because that is just, people really speed up right there. There's a pedestrian doesn't have a chance, I guess is where I'm going.
It's
Yeah, great.
Regarding the street diets, what is proposed for this property that's being regained? By, for instance, Terrace Street. You have a fairly large section between the sidewalk and the street now.
Yeah.
Does the city have any plans for that?
We don't have concrete plans yet, but we're kicking around different ideas, whether it would be passive recreation space, whether it could be areas for redevelopment, bike paths. There's a whole different list of things we can consider. I don't know. City
I think
manager
Terrace
has any-
Street looks wonderful.
The,
Great job.
the primary thing for Terrace is the bike path connector
Yes.
from the Lakeshore Trail to the
Oh,
Lake
I'm sorry,
Trail.
Terrace Street.
Terrace.
Yes, Terrace. There's a bike path
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah. So
Yes.
Yeah,
that
the
you,
bike- I was thinking.
I was about to jump on my seat.
No,
That's
Yes.
the bike path. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're waiting on state funding. We applied for a grant. The grant did not come in a timely fashion as we expected, but the ultimate expectation is that we will be connecting the Laketon Trail to the Lakeshore Trail via Sanford and
Yes.
Terrace.
So if we have to move the boat storage building 100 feet back from the bike trail because the handful of boats that cross it every year is going to terrorize the cyclists, why is it okay to have the bike path pass directly adjacent to the high school where kids are getting dropped off and picked up twice a day, 9 months out of the year?
Huh? Good point.
Well, we don't have to do the 100 feet. That was the developer choosing to 100 feet. We requested in the PUD, the last PUD, a 10-foot setback.
Well,
And the developer has extended that to 100 feet setback.
That puts you in the middle of the street if you did a 10-foot
I would
setback
suggest
from the
that
high
we
school.
use some sort of non-motorized movement to get it so that
The trail's going on the
not
other
so
side of
many
the high
parents are
school.
dropping their kids off at school.
It's not happening on the same side as the school right
The
there.
existing trail is on the
There doesn't need to be that many cars. Kids can walk.
is on
We
Messler
did,
and goes up to
Uphill
Claire
both
Shepard
ways.
Park.
right?
What do you propose of banning that from happening?
No, I really, really want kids to walk. I think it's ridiculous that
It's-
kids.
You can want it all you want, but there is going to be a
Parents can
traffic
drive
jam
them to
at
school.
Muskegon High School
Yeah.
in the morning and in the afternoon,
I know.
5 days a week.
Parents don't need to pick them up. They can walk.
There was one time there was some talk about,
We could promote use
Making
of bicycles, use of skateboards.
excuse me,
Sorry.
there was some talk a long time ago about adding some space on the terrace for parents to drop their kids off,
Oh yeah.
so they're not blocking the traffic like they currently do. Apparently nothing ever happened with that plan, but that was at one time that was discussed.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Commissioner. Montgomery, that creating, and that's what as the city is doing in terms of land use and planning of creating these complete streets that you can choose the way you want to get around, whether it is by vehicle, it is by biking, is by walking, it is by skateboarding, multi-mobility transit.
Yep. There's a small study like that going on, actually a project at Wraith's Puffer right now where they're looking at that. It'd be interesting to take a look and see what they do and maybe glean some things from that.
Yeah, and I'll also just one last thing share that I fully concur with you on the exploring of reconfiguring Moses Shown Parkway, which is actually one of the reasons that pushed me over to supporting this next phase of the Shoreline Drive road study, is because that is a necessary component for us to further explore Moses Shown Parkway. But I'm very keenly interested in reconfiguring Moses, because that's an egregious barrier between our
Jackson Hill needs
our
a
neighborhoods
neighborhood
and our
back.
waterfront and our core downtown.
That's ridiculous. Yeah.
All right, moving on to project number 3 in Marquette is to create an identity for the Getty Street and Marquette Avenue intersection. That's the area we were talking about a little bit. This is looking south down Getty at the intersection of Marquette. That large new building you see there is actually in the parking lot of the church. So we just kind of wanted to show what that may look like. It doesn't necessarily have to be a building. It could be a food truck lot or something to bring more active uses to that intersection, and we think that would help spark the redevelopment of those properties on the left as well.
Very cool.
So on the back of the plan, you're going to see a bunch of cool maps. Here's one for our non-motorized transportation plan. This shows all of the bike paths and future bike path connections throughout the city. And here's one I really like. This is our parks and open space map. You'll find this in our natural features inventory. This is a map of all of our parks and open space and everything that's within a 5-minute walk. So anywhere you go in Muskegon, there's very little spaces that are white, which would be outside of a 5-minute walk to nature. So we want to use this to kind of help some linkages to where we can help connect, whether it's people or wildlife as well, to kind of move throughout the city.
Get around just fine.
Very cool.
And this is a map of our public transportation, which Jill poignantly pointed out that's probably going to change.
Yep. Before you even print it.
And so this is where we're at with our master plan. Thanks everybody for participating so well over the past few years. These will be the final steps. We put the plan on the website for everybody to see on June 8th. We're here today to recommend that we just recommend to the City Commission that they distribute the plan for review. The June 27th meeting is when the Commission will look at it and hopefully send that out to those jurisdictions for the 63-day review period. And then in between then and August 24th, we're offering one-on-one meetings with anybody that wants to discuss the plan with us. We also have a comment section on the website if they want to simply do it that way. And then August 31st, we're planning a special planning commission meeting, so please put that on your calendars, and that's when we will have the public hearing and recommendation to the City Commission to approve the plan, and then that will go for approval to the City Commission on September 12th.
Awesome.
That's
great.
the same date the manager is supposed to be taking his tour of Nelson neighborhood.
What time is that at?
I don't know. Do you remember, Jonathan?
Morning to early
I think
afternoon.
It's I'm just looking at my calendar. It's not on my calendar yet, but I believe that one's they're done by 3, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, so we should be good.
I love it. Great job.
Thank you.
It looks absolutely fabulous.
Big thank you to Jamie Pesh. I didn't even know he was there. He's standing behind this pillar.
Yes, thank you, Planner Pesh.
Major writer in this plan.
Congratulations. Very nice.
Nicely done.
You need
So we're just looking for
you need a motion. Don't
a
you?
motion, which you could
Make
just
that?
make a motion to submit to the City Commission for distribution.
I'll do that. I'd like to motion to submit the master draft plan to the City Commission for approval for distribution and review. Is that what you want?
Yes.
Support.
Been moved and supported to approve the plan and send it to the city commission. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Seifert,
Yes.
Doyle,
Yes.
Mazade,
Yes.
Montgomery Keast,
Yes.
Spataro,
Yes.
Mahalski.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Is there any other business? Is there anyone in the audience that has business? Either here at City Hall or on the phone? Yes, Mayor?
Does I don't know if Mr. Director Franzik or Mr. Manager you want to speak on short-term rental? It got brought up earlier. So wondering if you want to speak on what has happened and where we're at and where we're going as part of our evaluation of short-term rental regulations.
So about a month ago, staff put together a forum on short-term rental. We had that at the high school because of the high interest we had in it. We had originally scheduled it to be at Bunker, or sorry, not at Bunker, at McGrath Park. And we had well over 100 folks. We had a survey up for over a month on our public engagement board. Well over 500 survey responses. We're currently in the process of staff is going through to get answers to the questions that we weren't either able to answer at the engagement or that we got online. We will be presenting at the July work session basically the findings of the public engagement and kind of some recommended next steps. We are having a public engagement throughout the summer. One of the things that we've been requesting of residents is if they are a neighbor of a short-term rental or if they're experiencing some things to please give us some active feedback in the moment, because a lot of what we hear is months later, and it's kind of hard to maybe for us to get our eyes on it at that point in time if it's after the fact. The engagement does allow for either written feedback or you can also attach pictures. So if there's things that you're observing, you're able to do that, and then we'll again revisit it after the end of the season. Our objective is to come up with some new recommendations, policy moving forward for the 24 summer season. One of the things that I do want to point out is from the public engagement that we had, the surveys, there was a general consensus that short-term rental should exist in the community, but with regulation. And the majority of the responses that we had at that point in time were from West Side neighborhoods, where the short-term rental tends to be more of a concern. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Is there any other business? Yes.
I just wanted to ask a question on that. I know that Teresa Emery, Commissioner Emery, called me and she was talking about asking me questions about rental properties on my street. So I know that there was a census that was actually done or is in the process of making sure that all the people that are supposed to be registered as rental properties are actually registered as rental properties, because I know that there were a lot missing. There's work being done on that?
So there's a couple different. That's also what this tool is for. Then there's a couple different tools that you can go online and kind of compare register or short-term rentals that are advertising and to see if we're missing any. So we have been doing that a bit. There's a software program called AirDNA. So yeah, we're working through because we know that there are some gaps in there and trying to make sure that people
There's
are
like
registered.
2 on my street.
Yeah.
So yeah, great. That's
Okay.
great to hear. I'm glad it's being worked on. It needs to be resolved. And those folks that are renting, I mean, they need to let the city know that they're renting their units. It just needs to happen.
Paying that accommodations tax too.
Yes. Yes.
Short-term rentals. What's the rate for accommodations tax here?
I don't know what the percent is.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Accommodations tax for
5%. Well, it's
only
5%.
5?
It's 5% for all accommodations.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't think the county doesn't
That's way
distinguish.
cheap.
Yeah.
okay.
So
they can
any
afford
other
to let you know.
business to come before this commission?
We charge separate fees as well, but
Okay.
We are adjourned.
Yeah, because we have the place that we have. I have a short-term rental in Florida. It's 11%.
Take care.
11% accommodation tax.
Oh, really?
To the
Do we-
county.
Mostly clear. Lows around 60. Tuesday, sunny. Highs in the upper 80s. Tuesday night, mostly clear. Lows in the lower 60s. Wednesday, sunny. Highs in the upper 80s. Wednesday night, mostly clear. Lows in the lower 60s. Thursday, mostly sunny with a 20% chance of showers. Highs in the mid-80s. The following information